Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WorkDad podcast. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on YouTube at work-dad or on TikTok or Instagram at workdad.io, or you can always just reach me by emailing me at brian@workdad.io. And I'm really happy to have our guest today on the show as we continue our tour through different people's career paths, different people's experiences, different people's lessons learned. Today, I welcome in an old friend, Derek Pharr, who is someone I've known for many, many years and who actually was the person who inspired me, urged me to start as a content creator many, many moons ago, back in 2007, back when that still was not as common, and helped me start what became a Seahawks blog and podcast and all those things. And in some indirect way has led me to where I am today, being able to have the WorkDad podcast. So definitely a influential figure in my professional and personal life. And Derek, good to see you, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. So this is all my fault, basically.
It is. It is.
No.
I mean, most things
But
are.
yeah, that's only fair. But I'm good. Yeah, I'm down here in my basement with my dogs, and we're just, hanging out. So it's good.
Yeah, for folks that are listening, we have the dogs mic'd up, so they may choose to participate in the conversation at some point. It'll test my editing skills. We'll see how we can do some AI translation into actual contributions to the conversation. But we'll take Derek as much as we can get. Derek, you've had a particularly interesting path in your career. And we're going to start because this is appropriate. I think we're going to start by playing a little game.
Okay.
And this game is so fun. Everybody's on it. You're going to be on this game. This game is called Job Titles Only. Walk us through your professional paid career, every job you've had that you've been paid for, as much as you can remember. Job
Mhm.
titles only.
So every professional or just every job?
Let's go professional. If you feel like you want to
Okay.
go a little further back, anything that you thought was influenced your journey, I'm happy to have those thrown in.
Okay. We'll start with bartender because that's at least interesting. Um, and then, gosh, I was at a Kinko's, and so I was a what was it, like a copy professional, I think was the term they used.
Love it.
And then still at the Kinko's, which is now what, FedEx Office,
I think
I
so.
worked my way into desktop publisher, um, much fancier than the copy jockey. Um, and then from there, tech support specialist, tech support lead, a quality engineer. I think that was our title. And that was my title for a long time. I think I got senior quality engineer at some point just for just sheer tenacity and age. Um, Program manager.
Hmm.
So those were my Adobe days. And then vice president of product to chief product officer. And that's where I am now. So
I love that collection of titles. Thank you for playing. You win. Your prize for winning is that you get to tell us more about that journey.
oh, good.
And I mean, there's not many people that go from job title of program manager to vice president of products.
No,
That's a significant change in title and type of work. I don't know that a lot of folks are aware of even where you work. Like Adobe, you mentioned you did that. That's where you and I became friends. But you left Adobe. You left what was a very cozy confine of Adobe, making a good salary, good benefits. I believe you had a family at this point. Am I right?
still do. Yes,
You
indeed.
still
Yeah.
do. Good. Glad to hear that. And you left. And what did you leave it
Yeah.
for?
I wish I knew. No, so yeah, at Adobe, was a program manager there and was working on sort of some DevOps stuff as well as InDesign and the early days of what would be like the Adobe Creative Cloud, and left that to go make trivia for a living. So it's a very logical leap from desktop publishing software to trivia. I don't know why anyone has a problem understanding that. But no, another ex Adobeite, Matt Ramey, who had been an engineer at Adobe, had left Adobe, started a company, left that company, and started up this other company that was doing trivia, making quizzes on a website. And he and I just stayed in touch through the years, and I really liked it. Just really got involved, and it was in the very early days there, and he had some rudimentary tools, and and he needed help testing them, and I got involved, and we started just making quizzes together, and that was Sporkle, not Sparkle, not Sporackle, but Sporkle, and
Spell it for
we
us.
just Sporcle, and that was 2007, 2008 in that time frame, and then just been going strong ever since.
So you left this kind of stable, I wouldn't say linear, but like at least a more standard career path that you were on, and a company that was well footed, and you left for a trivia company that was a startup. And I'm curious, like, why? Like, what?
Like
Some people are
what
like,
the hell?
why did you do that? And other people would be like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense. But was that an easy decision for you? Was it just something where, when it came up, you're like, I'm out of here? Or did you have to kind of mull that over a little bit?
There's this scene in The Simpsons from many, many years ago where Homer's like at the dinner table and he's just like, to hell with it, I'm going to clown college. And like it kind of felt like that. It's so out of left field, especially given the time frame in the 2007-ish years was not a great economic time for our country. And so yeah, it was not easy to do in the sense of all of the comfort and stability that Adobe had to offer, and the people I knew and all the things, and both kids were pretty young at that point. Um, but it was easy to do in the sense of that it was fun, and it had kind of that it checked a lot of boxes in terms of being able to give me a sense of adventure. I knew I would learn things. I mean, as great as Adobe was, everything's set up for you. You need a computer set up and you call the IT guy, or you need a desk moved and you call the facilities guy. And you have a question with your benefits, you go to the HR people. Um, but when you're a startup, none of those things exist, and so you have to make it all up as you go along and create processes and systems and put them in place. And that's really interesting to me. I love doing things like that. In addition to creating products and dreaming up features and working with users and a very small engineering staff. So it was hard from the stability standpoint, but easy from the excitement standpoint.
Well, and I know you because we worked pretty closely together. And part of what doesn't come through in that explanation is you are a prankster. You are someone who has always been playful in your work. You've always been into games and toys and all that kind of stuff. I think when I left Adobe after 24 years and emptied out my desk, one of my drawers was still full of gumballs that you had filled it with when I had made the mistake of taking time off one year. And so your personality was always someone who was drawn to fun things. And you didn't mention that, but I'd have to think that was part of what the draw was for you.
Oh yeah, I mean it's funny. I remember being at Adobe, and they had put up those like neighborhood, like they'd made fake neighborhood watch signs, and it was like a Derek Farr watch, so that people were like on the lookout to kind of make sure I was around. And it was like so prevalent that one of the security guards at Adobe came to my office one day and he had one of them. He's like, "Is this you?" And he didn't know it was like just people being fun, and he wondered if I was some kind of like security threat. Um,
Which you were, to
uh,
be totally
I
honest. I
yes,
mean, how many emails did you send from other people's computers impersonating them?
that was like my go-to thing, was to schedule meetings for people in the bathroom, and yeah, to send an email to like the whole group from my manager's computer saying like, that Derek Barr, he is doing great today. So um I'm amazed I didn't get fired, to be honest. Like they're like, and actually I had somebody email me just a few months ago. You remember Tommy Donovan?
I
And
do.
he was about to get up and leave his computer, and then he went back and locked it. And he said that Adobe should send me some kind of thank you for teaching best security practices. Um, to everyone. But what's tricky is when you go to a much smaller company, you can either prank yourself or you can prank Matt. And so that kind of ran out of steam pretty quickly. But luckily, our work environment itself was really fun and still is. We have offices in Fremont, and they have a lot of character, and the people that work there have a lot of character. I tell people when they start that, like, it's a job, it's our career, we have goals, and we take it very seriously. But we work in trivia. Like, we know what we're doing here. Like, we have milestones that we want to hit and all that. But we work in trivia. Like, no one's gonna die if our job doesn't go well. Like, it's good to kind of keep that perspective as we go through things.
Well, before we leave this part of the topic, and I want to get more into what Sporkle does, because I think people would be interested in hearing a little bit about your
Mhm.
business and all the things you guys do. I'm curious though. We talked about that you're in a good path, you're in a good place at Adobe. You I hear in your voice a little bit. I might be reading in between the lines, so please tell me if I'm wrong. I'm taking liberties here. Maybe you
Okay.
felt like stagnant, like you weren't necessarily like there wasn't a lot changing for you, or you weren't super engaged with where it was going. If if you had been at Adobe for another 2 years, and let's say you had been promoted multiple more times, and you had 30% higher salary than you did when you left, and more stock options or whatever it would have been, and maybe you had a job that you were really enjoying, do you think you would have left?
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, the money draw, the stock. I miss the stock options. I'm not gonna lie to you. Those were nice. Uh, Probably, I just had like this more than a 7-year itch going at Adobe, and I mean, I have nothing but good things to say about my time there, and the people that worked there, at least most of them. And uh, but you're cog in a wheel, like you only have, even as you work your way up, like, it's rare to have like a real big impact in what you're doing. And not to diminish anybody's work, but it feels like you get lost in a crowd too easily at a big place like Adobe. And so I think that for me, there was just too much of a draw to, like, do more, to learn more. I feel like ultimately that is kind of what drove me, is I like to learn new things. I like to just figure things out and be challenged. Kind of, I'm comfortable being uncomfortable. And so I was a little too comfortable at Adobe. And so to just go somewhere and have the opportunity to just have just all of these things you have to figure out and make up, was just really appealing, and still is. I mean, we're however many years in at Sporkle, and there's still all these things that we're just like, well, let's figure this out. Whether that's acquisitions that we look at, or spinning up new departments or products or teams. So that pull is too strong for me. I think it overcomes almost anything else.
You mentioned having a family, or I mentioned that you had a family, and you confirmed it that you still do. I assume your kids are getting older,
Yeah.
and they're heading into their potential careers, or at least starting to think of those things and areas of exploration. Given your experience, would you tell them, if they were going to let's say they're going to get into the tech field, they could get into any field, but let's say they're going to get into the tech field, would your advice be go find a startup and start there? Would your advice be get your feet wet in a larger company and then do what you did and jump off from there? Based on like your push and pull from Adobe as a large company, you got something, but you also felt stifled. How would you advise them?
That's a really good question, and it's actually real time. Like, my son is 20. He's in his second year at UW, and so he got an internship. And so the advice I gave him was, like, just get experience wherever it ends up being, and just see what it is you like. And he was fortunate enough, he has an internship coming up this summer, and it's at a big company, and it's going to be a grind. Like, he'll be there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, I think, in the office. And I love that for him, because he'll get to figure out pretty quickly, is this something he wants for the first part of his career? Does he want to go in and work at a place like Adobe and and with all of the benefits and all of the resources and the mentorship and all that comes. I mean, I there's a lot of great things about that because you do learn a ton in the early days. I think my problem is that after 10, 12 years, I wasn't able to maneuver enough at Adobe into different roles that it kept it interesting for me. Like when you
Mhm.
were at Adobe, you did a good job. I mean, you were part of that big acquisition, and like you constantly seemed like you were really stepping into these uncomfortable situations, and I personally stagnated. And so I think for my kids, whichever way starts out, if they start out at some big place and can learn a lot how big companies operate and manage, or if the fates decide that it's going to be some smaller startup and they're just going to hustle, like that's a great time to do it when you're young. So long as they are doing something that they're learning and it's kind of pushing them, then I think we're good. And I will say that, like, there's a lot from, I mean, I say I wasn't learning that much at Adobe, but in the early days, I certainly did. And there's a lot we do at Sporkle that is really rooted in a lot of the things that we did at Adobe. Like, we don't have the big like review process and all of that we did. That was very onerous. But just even some of the job titles we put in place, or just some of the structure, or different things around that are like, well, what did we do back at Adobe? And we kind of adopt it for what makes sense for a trivia company as opposed to a software company. So I think for the kids, I think that uh, I wouldn't talk them out of either path.
Well, it is interesting. Both you and Matt Ramey, the founder of Sporkle, do have big tech company roots, and then you kind of spoke to it a little bit, but that's where I was going next. I was curious if you think you would have succeeded as much with Sporkle if you guys had not built up some of the skills and confidence that you'd had at a larger company. Is there a way you can even imagine what that would have looked like? Obviously, you wouldn't have necessarily met each other in that situation either. So I'm kind of curious, what do you think that experience, how much of what you've then been able to accomplish at Sporkle could have happened without starting at, the path you took?
Man, I don't know. That's tricky, because there's so much of what I I brought from my time at Adobe to Sporkle that is it's almost foundational. That's hard to say. I mean, one of the jobs I had when I was a program manager was working with the pre-release program. This was at Adobe, and you'd give pre-release software out, and then you would work with this whole community of like developers and desktop publishers and get their feedback and manage the releases and all those kind of things. And what that taught me is just how important community is, like building some kind of community. And so from day one at Sporkle, we took our community very seriously, and we still very much do. And that's I mean, we have this really massive, pedantic, but invested community that is essential, honestly, to the company. And I think so much of that came from our time at Adobe. So if we didn't have things like that, experience with best practices and automated tools and how to set up bug databases, it would have been a lot harder. Like, we had to figure out hiring and recruiting on our own. That wasn't experience that I really got from Adobe. I did interviews, but I didn't know, like, they were there. They showed up, and you're like, yeah, I guess
Hmm.
I'll ask you a few questions. But that whole process of how do you recruit, how do you hire, how do you fire people, we had to learn that on the job, and we're pretty good at it now. But there was a lot of stumbling in the early days, and so I think that without some of those things that we learned from our time there, it would have been just so much harder because there would have been so much more to figure out, as opposed to looking back on the experience and going, okay, well, here's how they did it. Even if it was like, this is how they did it, and we don't want to do it that way, we'll try it this way. Um, yeah, that'd be tough. That'd be really tough.
Well, I love kind of imagining these different butterfly effects and different people's careers, and having kind of sat and watched what happened with you and Matt and Sporkle has been really fun over the years to see. And I also sense for you guys this kind of like, thank God we got out. And maybe again, maybe I'm putting words, but like, I think you guys really treasure your independence and your style, your work style, and what you guys are able to do there. And and I'm to the point where I'm a little bit curious if someone wanted to work at Sporkle and you had an open position and
Mhm.
they in their resume they're coming from a big company, pick whichever big company you like, or someone who's coming from another startup. How do you evaluate? Like, do you find yourself leaning? Does that have a large effect on when you're choosing someone to join the company?
That's a great question. I mean, I think one of the things that ends up keeping us from hiring people that have a lot of experience at a Tableau or a Microsoft or Adobe or something like that is once people get 5 years under their belt at Amazon or some other tech company, uh, we can't pay that. Like from we've been successful for a while, but like everybody that works at Sporkle could make more money doing the same thing somewhere else. Like I think from top to bottom, that's true. But we work at Sporkle because it's got a good company culture. We love the people we work with. We everybody learns everything every day. I mean, not everything every day, but like it's just such a good fit for like the people that love what we do that to hire kind of people off the street from other big companies, we just can't pay them what they expect. And so that ends up being its own kind of cheesecloth that filters through a lot of candidates. But for candidates that would be able to put that aside, I think we'd probably love to hire more people like that we would benefit from their experience and their perspective. There's a woman who works for me who had previous product management experience for a big company, and she took a couple years off. She and her husband actually started a farm in Florida. It's a whole farm thing, and the farm got successful enough that she wanted to be able to not be in the day to day operations of the farm and wanted a job that was doing product management, that was remote, that was with a smaller company. Like we checked all the boxes for her. And she came in and she hit the ground running like much faster than most people do because she has this like world of experience behind her. And she's this really critical, valuable member of the team. So we would benefit a lot from that. So we wouldn't stop someone from doing it, but a lot of times the pay opportunity is what stops people. Or we don't have stock options, like we just even though we've been around now for 17 years, like we're still a small to medium sized company with limited resources.
You talk about how how people choose to work for you, the type of people
Mhm.
that choose to be interested, and the type of people that don't. Talk about compensation being a key factor. And the reality is, work is the whole concept of work for most people is to exchange value and receive value. And the value you receive mostly is compensation. And so, but we're in this really interesting time where I think that's people are really changing what they're willing to give in order to get that in exchange. And I think this generationally, that's really different. I think with COVID, that has changed quite a bit. I think it's a
Yeah.
really fascinating time that is stretching especially the tech industry, but I think all industries in interesting ways. And so part of what I want to do with these conversations with people is get at how what your motivations are. Like if you can kind of peel the layers back a little bit. I don't know if this resonates with you or not, but I think people some percentage of how they choose is like to maybe please or get approval from parents. Some percentage of what they choose is to make money. Some percentage of what they choose is because they enjoy what they do, and then they'll scale back what they spend on or what their lifestyle is just to do something that they like. Some percentage of it's something that they're proud of. I'm kind of curious, like, do you have a rough idea of like what are your motivations for picking what you want to spend your life doing, what you spent your life doing?
Me personally, or people that work at Sporkle?
You.
Me. That's evolved over the years. I'm a little bit older now than I was, and when I was younger, it was I need to make some money. Like I know I like nice things and I like gadgets and tech. And so a lot of it was really money driven. But then, you start making some money and hopefully use that money well, and you get a little more breathing room in your day-to-day life, and it gives you the luxury and a little bit of the privilege to be like, okay, maybe this isn't the thing that should drive how I spend the majority of my time. And that was actually a part of why I even left and went to Sporkle. Like, I made less money in those early days, but for me, what drove me was just sense of adventure and impact. And now that I'm older and pretty established in the company, I think part of what's driving me is to kind of, I'm recognizing that, I don't know when I'll retire, but like, there's an expiration date on what I'm doing. And so I really want to help position people that are younger than I am, that are either new to the company or have been with the company for a while, and are kind of, still not finding their way, but are kind of moving up through the ranks as best as you can in a company our size. And so what's really important to me is a lot of that mentorship, and there's a lot of establishing our systems and adapting our systems as we grow, so that not only does the company survive long term after kind of the original group of us has left or moved on, which I don't see happening anytime soon, but I have that eye to the future, so that in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, not only can the Sporkle still be around, but the people that work there now can thrive. I mean, I'm trying to figure out who's going to take my job someday, and I have my eye on a couple people, and so just getting them well positioned to be able to do that.
I'm flattered, but I don't think I would be a good fit. I'm sorry, Derek. So
This
I
interview
think
is over.
this is a recruitment pitch, and it's not going well. So I guess part of what I'm hearing there is money was a larger factor early on, as I think is pretty common when you're just getting started.
Yeah.
You need money to do anything, and then there's also, I think there's some amount of reaching some point in your career where you have more control and authority over what you're doing. Forget money, but just you're not trying to impress a boss. You've kind of established who you are, and I think it sounds like you've reached that. So you don't have that you're needing to overcome to make sure you have job security in that sense. It sounds like an increasing factor or a larger factor for you is a little bit of legacy and a little
Yeah.
bit of how you leave things for people that take over for you. How much of that is in the people? Like, if the people that you are bringing up grow to be fantastic and super fulfilled at what they do, but they do it somewhere other than Sporkle, how would you do that? Versus if Sporkle lasts, becomes a company that's around for another 40 years, where do you feel like you've got more um, worth invested, or more, personal value invested?
That's a really good question. I, it's going to be kind of a cop out to say both, but I'll give you an example. Like, I was on LinkedIn, and just sitting at the dinner table, and my daughter was looking over my shoulder, and someone that used to work for me. I mean, she worked for me in a part-time content role uh, a long time ago. I mean, it might have been like 8, 10 years ago. But she came across the LinkedIn feed, and she was like director of IT for some company, like a company you'd know, even though I'm blanking on what it was. And that felt pretty cool. I like went to her page, and you scroll down, and it's just like Sporkle, and then like the other things that she's done. And like, she was a remarkable young woman when she worked for me, and she's clearly, has the drive and the skills to continue doing well. But I don't know, there's a little bit of me that feels like I helped in that journey somehow, even if it was like, gosh, I don't want to do things like that guy did it. But that was really gratifying, and I love that. But I mean, I've seen people that work for me, and we don't get a lot of turnover at Sporkle. So like, we've had people work for us for a long time, and to see them grow and to see them manage people, and then maybe maybe guide people in ways that they've seen me do. God, I love that. I just feel so good when someone's like, "Oh yeah, I had my one-on-one with someone and we talked about this," and like the fact that you had a one-on-one and it has half an hour and once a month, and that's exactly how I do those. Like I try and model a lot of things that that you'd be surprised aren't kind of like table stakes for a lot of managers, and to see them do the same thing, or to see them drive a project, or to handle conflict. Uh, I mean, that feels so good. And you're right. I think legacy is part of that, but it's also just, I think the dad in me, and I used to be an ultimate frisbee coach, and so the coach in me, I think all of that's just, my parents were teachers. All of that's in there to just want to pass on knowledge and see people use that knowledge, and then thrive as a result. It feels really good in all its forms.
Yeah, I think that the kind of the age old concept is that you want to feel useful and you want to be useful. That is part of professional. I think that's obviously something you talk about with people just getting into the working world, is just be useful, do your job well, do something to help things work. And as I think you kind of advance in your career, the concept of being useful changes about who you're useful to and what you're useful for. And I think a little bit more of it starts to shift into how useful you are for people that are being, developing in their career. I think it can also, a lot of people have it in how useful they are derived from the success of the products and the businesses that they've invested in,
Mhm.
right? Like you want to feel like you spent this time on something that mattered. And so that becomes an increasingly important thing for some folks. And it's not equal. It's not a equivalent for everybody, but I think different things start to matter. Um, how much do you feel, I'm going to get into, I want to shift over to Sporkle here in a second and talk a little bit more about that, but how much do you feel like you are focused on getting better at what you do as a product leader versus where you were 5, 10 years ago, when you're just trying to, start to develop some of these skills? Do you feel like, do you work on your your job itself and your skill set less than you did, the same as you did, more than you did?
Honestly, probably more. Um, which might sound a little strange, but I mean, like any of us, when you create something or you do something and then you look at it years later, you're like, oh, I can't believe that's the way I did things. Whether you're an engineer and you look at old code you wrote, or you're an artist or you look at something you painted. Even when you're building products from a product or a project manager standpoint, you're like, oh, those are some choices we made. Like that was great. And so more and more as I'm leading and managing more people, I have like the benefit of hindsight, and I want that hindsight to be foresight for other people. Um, and so these days I spend actually a lot of time writing, of kind of like documenting a lot of stuff that I did, but also just taking other classes. I've been going through this Google project management certification on Coursera for the last couple months, and like 90% of it, I'm like, yep, 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 yep. But there's still that like 10-ish% that I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, even though I've worked in this industry and been doing this for so long. And so for me, there's actually, I think, even more kind of not only on the job learning, but just continuing education, um, so that I can make sure I'm passing things off right, and setting up systems and things in place for the people that, because we're growing, right? Like we have more and more people coming to work for us. And as those more and more people come and work for us, I want everything to be as solid and as seamless as it can be. And so to me, that's even more learning, that to make sure that you're doing it as well as you can.
That makes sense. And doctors are, there's a required continuing education to stay up to date on the latest in medicine for obvious reasons. Um, Professors or people that are in research, scientists, they're pushing, what's the latest, and they're reading up on journals and all those kinds of things. Some engineers, depending on where you are, that's the case. Some, they're still writing COBOL, somewhere
Right.
and just doing that. But
Basic.
product is, yeah, exactly. Uh, product is one of those in betweens, and you can kind of get, you don't have to do that, but you can. And right now, AI is obviously the buzzword that everyone's talking about. And is that when that starts to come out, is that something where you're feeling, oh man, I've got to be the expert in our company, or I need to have someone else be the expert in our company so that we can at least think about how that intersects with our product strategy?
Yeah, I mean, you danced around it in what you're saying, but I am basically a brain surgeon. I think we can both agree. Yeah,
This
I
is going
think
to
something like
change the interview quite a bit, and I have different questions now.
I think AI is a great example. Um, uh, I don't know what it's like with the folks that you're around, but there's so much controversy around AI, and whether it's just non-engineers using a tool like ChatGPT, or people who work in content and are worried about their content being used in a learning model. So for me, yeah, I tend to dive headfirst into those things. I I'm a cryptocurrency guy. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna, like, go to jail for 25 years or anything like that. But um, those kind of like new technologies and new ways interest me all the time, because that was the internet. Like, I told my daughter, in the early 2000s, people thought that Google was cheating and you shouldn't use it for anything you're doing for your papers. You should go to the library and use the Dewey Decimal System, and that's how research is done. And now everyone, sorry, that was my dog. Now everyone uses Google. It's just this, like, it's a verb, for crying out loud. And so for things like, whether it's ChatGPT or APIs through OpenAI, and or the next thing that comes along, I think that sticking your head in the sand about it is not the way to go. And someone, especially a leader at a company, needs to be the person that can understand it, evaluate it, bring it to people. So um, I think that's honestly a big part of any leader's job, is to be willing to be the, what's that saying? First through the door get shot, or frontiersmen get scalped. To go out and be shot, just to so that other people don't get shot, and you can kind of
Do you have
show them the way.
any non-dying options in that arsenal
Do
of
I have any
yours?
now? Let's see.
I think
I really don't, actually.
first through the
Yeah.
door. First through the door.
First
I
through the
think
door. Yeah.
you don't have to add
Yeah.
the and get
You don't
shot. I
get
think
shot. Yeah. Because, like, you could be a fireman, like firemen are first through the
sure.
door.
Yes.
They don't always blow up. They
Yes.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, so Sporkle, again, getting back to that for a second, and then the intersection here with AI that we can talk about for a second. It's like you said, it's been around for a long time. It's, I think, been played over 5 billion times.
Hmm.
It has millions of people, many, many millions of people that have played it. You guys do quizzes in pubs,
Yep.
bars, and so live shows and things like that, all around the country. And when you're doing trivia, unless things have changed, the goal is to get as many answers right as possible, as fast as possible. And now you've got something like AI coming into
Yeah.
play. Is that something that started to creep in at all, where there's any questions about that?
I mean, people are always concerned about cheating in any kind of game or contest. And as a publisher who makes a game, you try and do the best you can. But at the end of the day, if someone wants to cheat, they're going to cheat. And that's true whether you're playing trivia, or you're playing Fortnite, or you're playing chess. Like, if people, don't have that spirit of the game, they're going to find a way to cheat. Um, and so, fortunately for us, if people do cheat, like, the stakes are relatively low. And if you get caught cheating at a bar, we'll kick you out of the bar, right? Like, we've had people that are just like, no, you're done. And that's fairly easy to detect, because we have hosts on staff that can walk around, and that's their job anyway, is not only read questions, but to kind of work the crowd a little bit. And hopefully, I mean, there's a lot to it, and it's a difficult job. And part of it, in my opinion, should be to kind of be that proctor of the test that is walking around. And then on the site, like we have anti-cheat mechanisms in place, but if you want to go to ChatGPT and look up the answer, or you want to Google the answer, like sure, you can. But the nice thing, especially about the website, is that it's generally a self-improvement tool. Like I think the reason we've sustained and we've done so well is because, I mean, sure, we've added things like badges and gamification and whatnot, but generally you go to Sporkle because you want to learn the presidents of the United States or the countries of the world or the periodic table of elements or something for your school or your test. And and so cheating doesn't benefit you because you're actually doing yourself more harm than good. If you cheat on a test, you might get an A, but if you cheat on a Sporkle quiz, you're just cheating on a Sporkle quiz. It's kind of dumb. And so but I mean, people do get outraged. Like I'm not kind of trying to diminish the emotional factor that comes with it. But I think a lot of what we do, especially digitally, is for self improvement, and so it's kind of apples to the orange when it comes to cheating.
I can't help myself, Derek. The product person in me starts thinking about these things and wonders if you guys have gone down this path. So you called it cheating, which I get because the notion here, and I have to also openly acknowledge I'm not a trivia guy. I am
Yeah.
awful at trivia, even sports trivia, which I'm a big fan of. I'm just not good at trivia. Don't enjoy it that much. But I wish I did because trivia nights are fun. I would love to go out to bars and have things to do like that, but I just don't like trivia that much. That's just me. But the product question I kind of have is knowing that your probably core customer is a hardcore trivia person and that what they want is to test their innate trivia knowledge against other people's innate trivia knowledge, or they want the self-improvement stuff that you just said. This
Hmm.
may be totally antithetical. So I'm just acknowledging that.
Okay.
But have you thought about reversing the polarity and saying, actually, we're going to hold nights where we're going to figure out who is most able to leverage AI or these other things, and that's part of the game is being able to master that. Because by the way, AI doesn't always give the right answers.
Right.
Have you thought about actually having people be able to play trivia against AI? Can anyone beat AI in trivia? Has any
We
of that
haven't
started to come up?
we haven't gone down that road, but we've done something adjacent to it, and that's an interesting idea. And now we probably should hire you. We used to do
It's
these
free.
things. It's okay, good. Um, we used to do these things called trivia hunts, and it it was the questions were so ridiculously hard and difficultly put together that we and it was like an event that you would like pay money and you could go online and do these things against a group of people. And the idea was that yeah, you're gonna Google, like you're gonna use these tools so that you can get to the answer the fastest. And Wikipedia speed runs, like if you've seen those kind of things, we do things like that at SporkleCon. We have a big trivia conference, and so we have a few things that are like that are like, okay, yeah, let's turn it on its head a little bit, but we haven't put anything together yet that is a you know fight the bot. Other than like, it's not anything using OpenAI or anything like that, but we do have trivia bots that we've built on Sporkle. You can play challenges against bots and showdowns against bots, like different feature things. But again, that's kind of more for, I think, if you don't have anybody else to play with, or
Yeah.
you're just trying to kind of challenge yourself. But it hasn't manifested in anything overly interesting.
Well, I know from past conversations, I mean, for you guys, in the I would assume key metrics, things that you're trying to drive are engagement related. How
Hmm.
many quizzes people are taking, how much time people are spending on this stuff, and also their general satisfaction and word of mouth, all those kinds of things to grow who's using it. But also part of doing that is coming up with new games. And so like when your competition isn't necessarily Google, your competition might be Wordle.
Yeah,
Right when that, and I'm sure you're kind of like curses. You
yeah.
wish that would have been you guys, or something along those lines. Do you spend time actually thinking about new games, or does it always have to come back to trivia? You know, my mind's spinning off on all these AI potential, things. Or you talked about really hard challenges where maybe there's people that have specialty knowledge, or maybe it's creating content or video, like all sorts of things you could have challenges on. I mean, if the AI, if what OpenAI is claiming to be true with video creation is possible, you could have challenges and people create, the best movie in a night, and potentially
That
have that.
that demo of Sora, I don't like if you saw
Yeah,
that, is just it's ridiculous. And
yeah.
Marcus Brownlee made the really good point. Like that's as bad as this technology is ever going to be, and so it's just only going to get better. And for us though, like we we have such a big, vibrant community that so many people take the tools that we've made and they make different games and they make different content. And what we really try and do is we believe that Sporkle, among many things, is a platform. It's a tools platform to be able to create things. And so part of what our job is to continue to expand that platform to give people more tools. And so, for example, in the first part of January, we released a new game type, and it's this type where you have to put things in order. So, like, put the first 10 elements of the periodic table in order, and you would drag hydrogen and then helium and so on. And it's a fun, basic kind of thing. It works really well on mobile, but it didn't exist before, and so now it does. And so now we have a user community that goes out and make different order up type of quizzes. And so for us, it's trying to give people more tools so that they can do more things. Like we don't have a word search on Sporkle, but we're gonna. Like that's one of those like, oh, we should probably have a word search. Like that's not necessarily trivia, but our mission statement is that we believe in making knowledge fun for everyone. And so our word search is knowledge based, yeah. And are they fun? Generally, yeah. And so are they accessible? Can anyone do them? Yeah. So if we can check those boxes for us and it doesn't fall too much out of our core competencies or what we believe in doing, then that's something we're going to make. And so it's that we have so many people that make content for us. So we know that if we give them the right tools, they'll do just incredible things. We're always surprised by what people come up with.
When you kind of look ahead, you talked about this a little bit about retirement, and you're far too young to stop
Thank you.
working. I had to say it was required by our contract. So w- when you think about retirement, what does it mean for you? What is that? Does that mean not working? Does that mean choosing to do whatever you want? Does it mean less hours? Like how do you define retirement?
Depends if you ask my wife, maybe. No, I retirement's hard, right? Like, because I don't ever want to stop. Like, I love working with people, and I love technology, and I love building things. Um, but I could see over the years, like scaling back and really handing things off to more people so that I can advise, I can consult, I can, you know, kind of embrace the board role more than the chief product officer role. Um, uh, I think it's that, but I think I'm always going to have irons in the fire. I'm always going to have some kind of plug. Um, but I mean, we're about to be empty nesters, and so there's definitely going to be more just travel with me and my wife. I mean, we traveled a lot as a family, but I think just the opportunity for the two of us to get out and explore the world again, just the two of us, is appealing. So I think the next few years are going to be finding that mix of involvement and doing things and staying challenged and hungry, but also peeling back a little bit and getting out of the way of some of the people we've hired.
You get to make these choices throughout your professional career, and they become a little louder, the questions and the things you have to think through as you get later in your career. But you're making that trade-off now. You're working as you do, and I know you're all in on what you're doing now and at Sporkle, and you got a lot left to accomplish there. But that means less time with your wife, traveling and doing other things. It maybe means less time socially. I don't know, but you're making trade-offs because there's a, you can't be doing all those things at the same time. So you're spending
Yeah.
a bulk of your time working. At some point, you're going to have a decision to make about whether that's the right
Trade-off to
place,
make.
the trade-off to make, right? And let's say that you're 60, 65, and you're still getting a lot of value out of feeling, challenged at work. You're growing, you're helping people, but you're also now not doing some of these things with your family or with your wife and with your friends, and your body's starting to break down, and maybe there's less things that you're capable of doing. Do you think about that ahead of time? Are you kind of like trying to decide what you're going to be able to look back and feel like this was the way I wanted to spend my time at this stage? Or do you just kind of live life moving forward?
No, that's actually been on my mind a lot. Um, you know, my mom passed away last summer, and just kind of seeing her in her last few years, and being, very involved in her life in the last few years. Like, she had retired, several years back, and there were a lot of days she would just say, like, "What am I even doing?" She kind of questions, like, how she spent each day. And so I I learned a lot from that, of just wanting to be like, okay, no matter if I'm 50 or 60 or 70 or whatever age, like, I want to feel good about A, how I'm spending my days now, and B, how I've spent my days leading up to it. And what's great about the path I've taken so far is that while it's come with trade-offs, I haven't had to compromise too much ultimately, because one, I love what I do and it fills me up, and it's such a good example for the kids that they can grow up seeing, like, oh yeah, you can actually love your job. You can love something that you get paid to do. That's pretty cool. And since it's a website and you can work anywhere at any time, I've done a pretty good job of being able to kind of take a trip or go somewhere for an extended period of time, but also keep tabs on work, and kind of balance those things and juggle. And sometimes I'm better at that than others. But the flexibility and the autonomy that this path has given me, I think, will extend into my later years. If it doesn't, it'll evolve, but I think it'll still continue to extend that way. And so, yeah, I do think about that. I mean, the body is breaking down. Like, I got injuries, and so, those things do slow you down, and you have to. I think that's why you mentioned legacy earlier. Why some of those things are even more important to me now. Of, like, getting other people set up and trained, and learning from things, because I know there'll be a time when I'm not as sharp as I used to be, and the resource that I am now, will diminish somewhat, or at least change. And so it's important to me now to, you know gather you rosebuds while you may, and hope that pays off down the line.
When you look back at your career so far, are there specific moments where there's either advice that's been imparted on you or a lesson painful that you had to go through that would be worth other people knowing?
Yeah, boy, how much time do you have?
We'll take a
Yeah,
couple of nuggets from
okay,
you.
I'll take a couple. One is just practical. I mean, in the early days of Sporkle, and this was right after I'd left Adobe, and went to Sporkle full time. Um, the advertising partner we were working with at the time just decided they didn't want to pay us, and part of that was because we gotten too successful too quickly, and I think that they realized they'd signed a deal with us that wasn't really sustainable for them, despite the fact that they did sign the deal. And yeah, they just decided not to pay us. And that was very stressful, and we had to scramble. Um, but, the obvious lesson there is, don't have 80 to 85% of your revenue coming from a single source, like those single point of failure moments. Just, whether it's personally or professionally, just don't put yourself in that position. So there's so much to be said for just diversifying things. And Sporkle's still that way now. I mean, it's part of the reason we have a pub trivia business, is because we didn't want everything to come from a website. And so that was a big one. And it sounds so simple to say, but it's hard to do. And so to keep that as a North Star, I think, is really important. Um, I think the other one is just, what is it from like the Best Exotic Marigold Hotel? Do you know that movie? And there's like a movie where he's like, everything will be okay in the end, and if it's not okay, it's not the end. And I think it's easy in those moments to like everything feels so huge and to just get overwhelmed and to feel like the world is closing in or collapsing. But you just got to keep going, man. Like you just that's that moment or that catastrophe is whether it's the housing crisis or COVID or something is there to just to challenge you and to teach you so that you can adapt. Humans are incredible at adapting. And I think that it's easy to get got so caught up in the moment that it all feels terrible. But when you come out on the other side, like you're almost always better for the experience in some way if you can just take the mindset to recognize that you are. And so I think it's those two things. Like don't do something stupid, like put all your eggs in one basket and have all your revenue come from one source. And don't get distraught when everything seems like it's collapsing because it's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine. Just keep going.
Derek, where can people find you, and where can they
Yeah.
find Sporkle if they want to learn
Okay.
more?
Yeah, so I'm pretty easy to track down. I mean, Derek at Sporkle. So you can go on the site and I got a profile there and I'm on there all the time and we have forums and so I'm easy to reach. I've also started writing a newsletter, uh, and that's been a nice passion project for me. And so if you want to hear, some of the things we've talked about, words of wisdom, or some of those things I'm trying to impart into other people, particularly around like leadership or getting things done. Chief Rabbit, so chiefrabbit.com. Uh, Easy to find there. Um, and then I'm on LinkedIn, just my name on LinkedIn. It's pretty simple. I don't do anything, other than Chief Rabbit. I don't have too many other monikers, so I'm pretty easy to track down.
That's Derek, DerekPharr, if
Yeah,
you're looking
well
for
done.
him. And Derek, thank you so much for joining. Thank your dogs for being willing to listen as a wrapped audience during the conversation. And man, it was really great to catch up and hear about your journey.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate this. It's great to talk to you.
Awesome. That's it. That's another episode of the Work Dad podcast. Hope you all enjoyed it. Please give the show a like, click subscribe, share with all your friends and family, and we will see you all next week. Take care.